We're going to get going now. Thank you, first of all, to our panelists for being here today, and to the audience for taking part in this session. I'm going to introduce to you our panelists, and then I have a couple questions for them just to get them rolling. But what I really encourage is for the audience also to ask questions. Panelists, just so you know, we have a mix of some comm majors, some people interested in marketing, and then my entire first year class of like 16 students, because so the piece where you talk about just your broader education here is also going to be really valuable to them, just so you know. So first of all, I want to introduce our panelists. We have got in the upper left-hand corner, Brace Himmelgarn. Brace graduated in 2012. I had him in, I think, a couple classes, right, Brace? Yes. And Brace is the team photographer for the Minnesota Twins. And Brace's claim to fame is one day back in the day when we had like actual printed newspapers, I was holding a copy of USA Today in front of the class to show them something. And Brace's photo literally was on the front page of the paper. And that was when I learned that Brace had a side game as a photographer. Michael Fry, 2018 graduate, also had me for a couple of classes. Michael is a senior project manager in creative management for Walt Disney Studios and OMG 23. And then Bridget Dietz, Deutz. Which one? Dietz. None. Okay, none of the above. Bridget is also a 2012 communication graduate, and she's the founder and chief marketing strategist for Greenline Marketing. So welcome, panelists. Thank you again so much for being here. The first thing, if each of you could do this, is just tell our audience a little bit about kind of your career trajectory, what you studied here, where you went once you graduated, and what you do now, kind of how you got to where you are and what you do now. And Michael, I know that you are an old pro at this, so if you'd like to start, that'd be great.
Yeah, can do. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Fry. Like Dana said, I graduated in 2018 with a major in communication. I guess in terms of career path and how I got to where I'm now working with, OMG 23, Walt Disney Studios, it wasn't completely a upward trajectory the whole time, for sure. I think especially with COVID and how everything kind of shifted and changed immediately with that. It was kind of a bumpy road, kind of like it is for everyone. So immediately after graduation, I actually didn't have any sort of job lined up. Even during college, I didn't do any sort of internship beyond the one I did while I was abroad. I studied abroad in London during my junior year. I was super interested in the media space and sports space and kind of the intersection of both of those, and landed a gig at a small mobile app development startup in downtown Minneapolis a few months after college. So even after graduation, I was unemployed for a little bit there, which is totally normal from what I'm told. So after that, I worked there for a couple of years. Got to do some really cool things in the sports space, particularly with professional tennis. And after that, my interest kind of really shifted away from sports media. Still love sports, just not, after working there for a little bit, it wasn't something that, I had a huge passion for. And I ended up with an advertising logistics position at Hayworth Marketing and Media, which is again in downtown Minneapolis. And within the context of that position, advertising logistics is really just kind of a fancy way of saying project management and helping drive digital advertising campaigns for an assigned list of clients. Now, while I was there for a couple of years, in the middle of my tenure there, that's when COVID-19, the pandemic, really started picking up, and the entire way everyone worked was completely flipped upside down. There was that massive shift towards remote first work. I took advantage of that and decided to pursue a different passion of mine. So I kind of shifted again more over into the film and entertainment space. And I actually found a job out here in Los Angeles. I worked remote from Minneapolis for about a year. And then my wife my dog and I made the move out here to Los Angeles, and I got the amazing opportunity I have now with OMG 23 and Walt Disney Studios. So lastly, kind of where I am now. OMG 23 is a media and marketing agency dedicated solely to Walt Disney Studios, Disney Plus, and all the sub studios therein within. So we have like Pixar, Marvel Studios, 20th Century, etc. My job here is Senior Project Manager of Creative Management. It's a mouthful, essentially just driving the execution of marketing campaigns for, again, a assigned slate of film titles and television releases. So that basically means making sure the marketing campaigns for, say, a movie like Toy Story 4 makes its way from, point A to point B, hitting the specific goals along the way, releasing to the public on time, within budget. So on any given day, I'm kind of working with, my team at OMG 23. I'm working with the studios, external partners, publishers, making sure that the digital, marketing campaign is going smoothly, churning forward, and kind of without any major roadblocks or anything like that. So started in Minneapolis, moved out to LA, and that's kind of where I am now.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Bridget, if you'd like to go now.
Sure, yeah. I'm Bridget. I was a communication major. I graduated in December of 2012, so I was technically part of class of 2013. I just finished up a semester early. So when I graduated, I found a job in Sartell. I wanted to be near St. Joe since all of my friends were still in school and I was wrapping up. So at that time, I got a job as a social media marketing coordinator, which in the fall of 2012 was a very new title. There weren't a lot of like digital marketers specifically with social media. So I worked at a financial institution and I was there for about 1.5 years and then went into healthcare software and was a content writer in that space for a brief period of time. And when I was at St. Ben, St. John's, I think I knew I wanted to eventually get to an agency, but I, at that time, had the misperception that that meant going to Minneapolis and the cities. But there are a handful of agencies in central Minnesota. So I got a job at an agency in St. Cloud. I was there for about 5 years. During the time they were growing a lot, I was, like their 10th or 11th hire, but by the time I left, there was like 28, 29 people. So I did inbound marketing there and was the head of the department. And then just about 5 years ago, I went out on my own and started Greenline Marketing. I just had the desire to work a little bit more autonomously. So when I wanted, where I wanted, with the clients I wanted. And at that time, because the agency was growing at such a rapid rate, there was kind of a shift of like who was doing what. So I wanted to be in client meetings, but also doing marketing, execution, and strategy. And I didn't necessarily want to just pick one seat or the other to be in. And so going out on my own kind of gave me the flexibility to do a lot of different things for clients of all shapes and sizes. So I started Greenline Marketing. We do a lot of digital strategy, website user experience, content writing, experiential marketing, kind of the full gamut. It's me and I have one employee, my colleague Emily works with us, and then we have a Benny intern. So we're a pretty lean company, but we do link arms with a lot of other small business owners who are kind of in their creative genius zone and are good at what they do. So that's how we can kind of offer a variety of services for clients and other agencies that we partner with too. So
attention,
that's kind of
entrepreneurs.
my cliff notes.
Yeah, we do have, with the I know some of you are aware of our entrepreneur program. You can sort of build some of those skills while you're here, by the way. So if you end up like Bridget, like I'm gonna go out on my own now, you at least have maybe a little background. Just as a little aside. And last but very not least, Brace Hemmelgarn, St. Cloud's own.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? My name is Brace Hemmelgarn. I also graduated in 2012 in May, though. Yeah, I was a communication major. I started a lot of graphic design while I was in high school. I was kind of creative. So when I was a freshman at St. John's, I did start doing graphic design for the athletic department. Helped design like the football programs, football tickets, And then from there, they had some cameras. And I figured if I'm going to be designing this stuff, I might as well pick up a camera. I didn't do anything, didn't know anything. I still have never taken a photo class in my life. Just I hated being bad at things, so taught myself Photoshop, taught myself photography. Was a communication major in college and tried to focus on writing and stuff. Um, Shot a lot of St. John's athletics, drove to St. Cloud, shot a lot of St. Cloud State athletics while I was in school. And then I started with the Twins in April of 2011, which was my junior year, as a part-time team photographer. I did that part-time for 2 or 3 seasons. I became full-time with the Twins in 2014, and I just wrapped up my 13th season with the Twins. I did pretty much mostly photography for a while. Starting in about 2018, I took over our publications and became the editor of our magazine and our yearbook. So we did about six issues a season of our magazine and one yearbook that we put out every year. So that was a kind of a tall task that I took on for about 3 or 4 years. And then recently, within the past couple of years, I've changed into a different role, and now I'm the manager of baseball content and photography. So I'd say photography is probably 50% of my job, even though I still shoot a lot. I oversee anything we put out on social media from a baseball standpoint, whether it's graphics, video. I helped direct a show that we started on YouTube this season. So I've kind of been a sports nut my whole life. So getting to do this with my hometown team is pretty sweet. And now kind of having my foot in the door, doing a lot of things outside of photography, but just creatively in general within our marketing department with video, print, digital, all that stuff it's pretty fun. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you all. Does anybody have any questions before I have them go on? Ethan. Were you able to hear him?
Sorry, yeah, you might have to repeat that,
Oh,
Dana.
yeah. So it's one of my first year students, Ethan Minor, and he'd like to know if you knew what you wanted to do when you came into college, if you knew you wanted to be a communication major, maybe if you had some sort of a career idea, or is that something that evolved as you were here?
I can jump in. Mine definitely evolved. When I started at St. Ben's, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I had a vocal music scholarship, so I was heavily involved in choirs, and was considering either music performance or music education. Within my first semester, found that I did love music and singing, but I didn't want it in a career space. So I considered education for a while, but my FYS professor, Julie Lynch, was a communication professor, and I really enjoyed and thrived in that class and started kind of exploring more communication and creative classes. So that's what kind of led me to communication. I don't know that I had put a finger on, deciding marketing until probably more like my sophomore year. It definitely wasn't something that I started my path with, but just kind of learned more about and considered what opportunities were out there, and then got a couple internships my junior year, and that all kind of helped get that real world experience to kind of help me decide what I wanted to do after school.
Thank you, Bridget. And just to clarify something, when she said FYS, up until I think a few years ago, we had a year-long version of Integrations 100 that was called First Year Seminar, or FYS. So it's the class a lot of you are in now, only it was a year long.
I'm probably just showing my age. Yeah. FYS.
Well, we just shifted. Matt. So Matt just asked if once you picked up a camera, did you take a photography class to kind of push into that area? Did you switch up to your classes to kind of once you found your interest?
I came into St. John's as a business major. I think I switched over halfway through my sophomore year to communication. I've never taken a photo class in my life, or a graphic design class in that same vein. I hated being bad at things. I was always creative. I feel a lot of people that got into photography start in like art school and then learned from there. I was backwards. I picked up a camera, didn't know what I was doing, but I kind of just taught myself along the way. And that's where St. John's was great. We had equipment. We started. I was able to learn and grow on the fly. But yeah, I think they have photo classes at St. John's. I know they for sure had like film classes. But in the digital age and everything, looking back, I probably should have, but I took the hard route and just tried to teach myself and found a different path. And yeah.
There is a photo class in the art department, by the way. Annie.
My question is, what advice do you have on getting in the creative field, especially with like comm or business majors where you might not have the direct art experience, but you're going into the creative?
Could you hear that? She has, yeah. Advice for going into the creative field if you don't necessarily have art experience, but you are a global business, or which by the way now has a marketing track, or comm major, and you want to get into the creative field. How do you get in the door?
I know for me, when I was there, again, it's been 10 plus years, but global business was management at the time. There wasn't a marketing major or minor. So I worked with my advisor to kind of talk through this because I wanted to take things like photography or computer art at the time so that I learned some of that, because I wasn't necessarily a drawer or a painter or a sculptor, but I knew if I wanted to be in marketing that I had to have some sort of like creative sense or abilities. So I kind of identified business classes and art classes that I anticipated would serve me. So I took computer art 1 and 2. I took black and white photography. I took video aesthetics classes. And then I also tried to take, like organizational business and any like marketing 101 classes that were offered. And then I also studied abroad in Australia. And part of the reason I chose that program, other than it was in Australia, was because we enrolled in University of Notre Dame, and they had a ton of marketing classes that I was able to take while I was abroad.
And Michael, I don't recall you taking a bunch of art classes or anything, but you yet have broken into the creative field in a big way.
Yeah, Dana, I still draw with stick figures. I cannot draw for the life of me. I'm a creative person. I like to think I'm a creative person, at least. But I don't have any sort of artistic background whatsoever. I'm very much on a much more of an analytical mind and position, logistics, project management, kind of like time management, things like that. I think there's so many there's so many transferable skills that you do need, even in a position that, you look at and on paper, it's a very creative position. I think, I was very into photography in college, and I did a lot of stuff with film as well. And that was kind of more of where I kind of unleashed that artistic side. I built a portfolio, and I used that to apply to a ton of positions when I was starting to do that. So I think it's you need to be artistic, but you also it's a good mix of all of the transferable skills you need to be, successful in any marketing and creative position as well.
Okay, great. Kira.
My question for Michael is like applying for like big jobs like that, what stood out in
Okay, so Kira, another of our first year students is asking, when you are applying for, and she specifically would like to hear from Michael first, when you are applying for jobs, like such as, some of the more recent ones you've had, what stood out? What got, basically what stood out on your resume, on your application that got you into it for an interview and eventually hired, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I know, like, with what I do now, a lot of, and with Disney and all of that, a lot of what got me in the door there was some of my more recent positions. Like with Hayworth, it was a lot of project management. And then with that mobile app startup that I was talking about, a lot of my job there was a lot of marketing, project management, and running campaigns and things like that. So where I am now, it was kind of a culmination of everything that I did before professionally. But to kind of lead into that, because it's all kind of interconnected as you go along. What got me into my first job at that mobile app startup was honestly things I did on campus. Like I said, I had no internship experience. During the summers, I worked at a car dealership and a golf course. Nothing that I did there beyond, just gaining experience in a work setting was directly transferable to what I did. But what I did on campus, being involved in clubs, and I was a part of Johnny Benny Media, and I don't know if it still exists, but
Yep.
Stream Team. So I was streaming the football games before. I think the athletic department does it now, but those things were what actually got me in the door there. And then thereafter, at that job and the job after, the things I did there got me to where I am now. So it was kind of a ladder effect all the way up to kind of where I am now, if that makes sense.
So kind of jumping into on-campus areas of interest and getting some experience and maybe having that failure or two that tends to happen.
Yeah.
And then you have something to offer when you go to your first interviews, and then you just keep building from there. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's that's not to say that internships aren't valuable. I would 100% recommend getting an internship if you can get one, totally, especially for a marketing and creative field, and even a business field, really any field. But I guess more so to say it's not the end of the road if you don't, because there's always things you can pull from just general experiences on campus and clubs you're a part of to like really get your foot in the door somewhere that you might not expect.
Thank you. Got another one? Yep. Okay, the question is for Braith. How did you break into the sports world as a specific subset of the media, the media industry overall, but how did you break into sports the way you did?
I shot everything and anything I possibly could while I was in college. I probably sacrificed a lot of weekends with friends and stuff to find a random football game to shoot. I just knew I wanted to get better, and I was striving for a goal to work in pro sports someday. So I spent all 4 years of college shooting as much as I could, trying to get better. But also at the same time, while I was shooting those events, I was introducing myself to people, networking, and just trying to put a name to a face for myself when it came time to graduate and start applying for jobs, kind of thing. So networking, I think, was a huge thing for me. Any game I went to, anytime someone I looked up to or somebody I knew that had a job that I wanted, I would go introduce myself, put a name to a face. And then, yeah, I got my job with the Twins in 2011. I shot a couple Twins games here my sophomore year in 2010. But I came to the PR office before every game, introduced myself to the staff, asked questions, make sure I was going where I needed to. But yeah, I'd say networking is huge. This is going to make me sound old again, but like back in my day, photography wasn't big. Like it was, I think I became like the fourth or fifth full-time team photographer in baseball in 2014. And outside of like in St. John's, I think I was probably one of the only students back in the day that took photos. We had a handful of students that took photos, but now I would say in the last like 5 or 6 years, as many of you have seen, like the creative world is kind of blown up, and every college has photo and video and kids that do everything with athletic departments. So it's grown a lot, which is good. So it's easier to get into because a lot more kids do it, but it's also harder to get into because every school does it and every school has a creative team. But definitely when I'm looking at internship applications and everything, it's every single student works with their college athletic department, or they had an internship in the summer with a different sports team. The creative industry has boomed just so much that everyone and every team takes it. It's marketing for yourself, for your team, for your organization. So every team is taking advantage of it now. So yeah, hopefully that answered that.
Thank you, social media, for blowing up the creative field, right? Any other questions before I move on? Yes. That's a good question. And I actually, what he asked is specifically for Brace. How do you stand out on an application form? When you put your name in a pool, if so many other college students are getting that creative experience, whether it's photography or something else. And I actually think that that really applies to any major and anybody kind of trying to stand out, when they're in college and applying for jobs or internships. So specifically, as far as you're concerned, Brace, how would you answer that question? I mean, obviously, the working with your campus sports department.
Yeah, I mean that helps, and just making sure that you do the right thing when you're out doing work, and people see the work that you do and they put a name to your face. I'm actually just going through our internship applications right now for my photo intern next year. I got 140 applicants to go through, which is kind of a pain. But people that stand out are people that have a good looking resume. No offense to the people that do, but like I hate resumes in Microsoft Word. If you're in a creative field and you're trying to do something creatively and just typing words on paper and not having something that looks good, that definitely stands out to me. It's a little different for a resume for photography because I can look at your words on paper, but your art and your eye is going to do a lot of the talking when I go to your portfolio. So that and it's never a bad thing to send an email and introduce yourself. And the amount of random DMs I'll get from kids on Instagram just saying like, "Hey, I applied," like that goes a long way than just like I know there's a kid that shot a game this year at Target Field and he applied for the internship. He did not say hi to me or even introduce himself at the game this year. So like that for me that goes a long way because he didn't put himself out there, he didn't introduce himself. I like people that like to yeah, if send an email, say you applied to the internship, find the hiring manager, send an email, introduce yourself. It's not easy to stand out in this day and age in the creative field, so networking goes a long way, and just putting yourself out there. Sending an email and introducing yourself is not a bad thing at all.
Great. Michael, Bridget, do you have anything to add to that?
I would echo, I mean, an introduction. I get, students who connect with me on LinkedIn, which I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, but following up with a message of either like how you found me or why you know my name or any of that quickly creates a personal connection that I value a lot more. So yeah, I think just putting yourself out there and like Bray said, I think showing your creative abilities, even if it is, using a Canva template for resumes, putting your own creative spin on it, that sort of thing, will put you ahead.
Yeah, I think echoing all of that, obviously, I think just in terms of a resume, I would recommend just proving that you'll put in the work and figuring out how you want to show that. I think so many people will, they'll lean on, any internship experience they have as like a sole driver for, why they think they should be getting this, whatever position they're applying for. I think prove that you'll go above and beyond elsewhere on your own time, making it obvious that you're honing your skills and experiences, outside of the workplace. You're joining clubs, you're in organizations, just you're active and you're willing to meet people and taking an opportunity to learn something new and saying yes and just doing, I think will go a long way as well.
The other thing I'm just going to mention really quickly is, for example, I can't imagine Brace or Michael. I don't really know Bridget as well, but Brace or Michael, if they saw someone from CSB and SJU applying, I would think they might connect with, me maybe and be like, hey, do you know this student? And I would be able to give some insights into that student on a day-to-day basis. Because, and that just actually happened. Not with them, but with another person. She's like, hey, do you know that somebody I worked with years ago? You know this guy? I'm like, uh-huh. Would you hire him? Uh-huh. Guess who's working at the U of M now? Uh-huh.
I would also jumping in quick. Like I would say, you never know who could help you down the road. Like a lot of times, I got a pretty big network now around the country in terms of photography. So if I see a candidate, I'm going to shoot a text to a friend and, hey, what do you know? Do you know like anyone that you cross paths with down like from here on out throughout college, you never know who can help you. So you don't want to like burn any bridges, and you want to that goes a long way. Whether it's Dana or another professor, maybe another coworker or someone you meet at an internship, like anyone could help you along the way. So just make sure you put yourself out there in a positive light.
This is kind of a good transition also, since we have people from so many different majors here, and a lot of first years, I think I'm an econ major, I'm a global business major, I'm a psych major. Why do I need to take these liberal arts classes? Why do I need these writing classes, these critical thinking classes? Why do I need to do, discussion? Can you speak to some of the skills that just experiences that as just a liberal arts student outside of your major kind of helped you elevate? Anyone?
I was gonna let anyone else go first, but I can jump in. I think just in general, I think all those transferable skills that you kind of just listed out are huge, and you'll get a lot of them in any class you take at St. John's and St. Ben's. I think the biggest one for me, as I've progressed through my career, which is still a very small career up to this point, just a few years outside of college, was public speaking and just in general, just like being comfortable getting in front of a group of people and discussing and listening and learning. And honestly, just, like I said, public speaking, like what I'm doing now, for instance, I think just, being able to do that, be comfortable with it, because you never know when you're going to be, all of a sudden plopped in front of a group of people or on a Zoom call, I guess now, like we do now because of COVID and everything like that. And just needing to be able to express yourself clearly and concisely has been super important over the course of my career, on top of any number of things. But I think taking classes across, all learning, subjects at St. John's and St. Ben's, and just, that was something that I realized very quickly was it's a very open forum discussion type of vibe in a lot of classes. And that honestly helped me a ton in getting to where I am now, being comfortable talking to people and, in front of big groups of people as well.
It's basically every meeting that you guys go to is basically a small group discussion, right?
Yeah.
And there's not such thing as an industry that doesn't have meetings.
No.
And Brace, I was thinking, Brace, too, for you, like the learning how to learn. And probably you too, Bridget. I mean, it's not just, oh, I learned this, but I know how to learn. I mean, Brace taught himself photography. Bridget owns a company, and she you weren't in the entrepreneur series, were you? But you learn how to learn.
Yeah, I think, one thing that I got very familiar with at St. Ben, St. John's was just being comfortable asking questions, whether it's part of a discussion or connecting with a professor or, whatever setting it's in. I think asking questions makes you more resourceful. It shows your curiosity and your commitment to something. I mean, it goes hand in hand with kind of learning how to learn. I think I know there are a lot of resources on campus. So if you get resourceful with how you can take advantage of what's at your fingertips, Brace talked about a nice resume, and there is, trying to think what it's called, because it's not the Career Resource Center anymore. XPD on campus that can help you with that. I tried to ask other professors, do you know people in marketing? What classes would they recommend? I talked to other alums. I never stopped asking questions and never was ashamed or afraid to ask questions, because it was the only way that I would learn and would know, what other people were doing and what was and wasn't working.
Grace, you have anything to add there?
I just think it's beneficial at liberal arts just to have you're not a narrow path. You get to put your foot in the door in a lot of things, and you learn a lot of, there might be a class you don't like, but you're going to learn a lot about yourself and how that is a challenge for you, and how there's different perspectives on how you look at things and how you take on a new challenge. And kind of like how I said earlier, I hated being bad at photography or whatever, but if there was a class I was challenged by, it was another I played games with my head and tried to get better at that. It's a challenge to go there every day and learn something new, and what can I take out of this necessarily. So
Great. Thank you. Anybody else have a question before I continue? Anyone? Okay. What about, I mean, I guess other skills and experiences that were helpful, maybe even when you think about campus or off campus that were helpful to you getting into your career and helpful now in what you do? Like maybe that general skill set. Michael talked a lot about being able to speak in front of people, and Bridget about asking questions. How much writing do you guys do?
I do a lot of writing.
Like 1,000 emails a day, for example?
Yeah, emails are like, I would consider those easy writing. I mean, we're writing like full websites of content, in a matter of few days, writing blog articles, white papers, anything like that. Yeah, those are skills that you might think are annoying now, but I will sit down and write, 1,500, 2,500 words in a couple hours and not think much of it, thanks to a lot of my comm classes.
And you're even outside of comm when you learn
Yeah.
some of the basic essay structures. And
Mhm.
and I remember Braith was a photographer, but the Minnesota Twins assigned him to do wasn't it the media guide?
yeah, I wrote a couple stories way back in the day.
Because I
when
remember
I
you
still had
touched base with me like,
the
I have
comm
to
skills.
write.
Yeah, I think I wrote a couple articles to the Twins magazine. That was a challenge, but it was fun. I wrote enough papers in college that I had the skill set to do it, but I was also writing about something that I was passionate about, and I knew a lot about baseball, so that with aligning with being comfortable made it easier for me. So, yeah.
What advice would you guys give right now, the three of you, to first years, or I mean, any students sitting in here? Let's start with the first years. Here they are, just past the halfway mark of their first semester of college. Try to put yourself back there, little you. What advice would you give them for their next 3.5 years at CSB and SJU?
I love that there are so many first year students sitting out there. I don't know why I was expecting like a ton of like juniors and seniors and things like that, which is great if they are here. But I think it's so awesome that there's a ton of first years here, because there's so much time to kind of do things and get involved. I think about all the time going back to like when I was just starting in like 2014 at St. John's, like all these things I wish I would have done, and things I wish I would have tried to do and being more involved in. I think my biggest thing for everyone here who does fall into that bucket is really just get involved. There's so much available at St. John's and St. Ben's that you might not think it would be fun, or on paper it doesn't look like it would be that interesting to you, but if you just go out and do it, you might find out you do like it, or if you don't like it, you might meet someone that brings you in to do something that you do like. I think one of the most random things I did at St. John's was I had zero interest or experience doing it. I just decided one morning I was going to wake up and go row crew with the crew team on Lake Sag, and it was something that I enjoyed a ton, and I got to meet so many new people. It was a lesson in teamwork and leadership, and it was just all those little things built up. It was such a great experience, and I think there are so many other opportunities to do that, even more directly aligned with what you want to do after college. So just get involved, go do things on your own time instead of just sitting inside or doing something by yourself. Go out and be a part of something with a larger group of people and just do something new.
Thanks. Bridget or Braith?
I think I have two pieces of advice. My first one, and it's kind of similar to what Michael said, but I would say don't wait to take advantage of opportunities. There's things where it's like, yeah, maybe my junior year I'll do that, or like I'll wait till the fall of my senior year or after my sophomore year. All those things that you think you can kind of like kick the can down the road. I have our intern now, Claire, applied when she was a sophomore, and I had never had an intern application come in for someone who wasn't a junior or senior. She presented herself really well, reached out and was like, I know I'm young, but I'll work hard. I have a lot to learn. And now she's in spring semester of her senior year. And it's been great to have her as an intern for 2 years, knowing, what she's learned. But I was so impressed by her putting herself out there as a sophomore to say, I know I'm younger and I have less experience, but here's why I want this. So I would say don't wait to kind of grab onto some of those opportunities. And the other thing I think I learned probably later than I should have was to be really critical about the classes you select. And when you're looking at the course catalog, I think I listened to a lot of people around me about what was easy or what was hard or what classes were best if you have to take a math class or a science class. And my advisor really pushed me to do that too. And so when I had to take math, which I was dreading, she said, well, maybe instead of like math 101, we should look at statistics, because that's something, in marketing, you're going to have to learn how to do reporting and how to look analytically at numbers. And to be frank, I hated the class. Math intimidates me, but it's things I use every day. I'm constantly reporting on what's working, what's not, how do I get percentage of increase and impact of ROI and things like that. So don't just take the easy route because you've heard a professor or a class is better or worse than another one. I think really critically about what's going to shape you and what skills you'll get to kind of, put yourself a little bit further ahead.
And there's so many clubs on campus. For example, the president of the marketing club is right here. Just joining that club, and you typically do field trips. I know the comm club sometimes goes to see the Timberwolves PR office. So, just get in there and do stuff. Great. Anything you'd like to add?
I think that was pretty good. I'm content. I can't top either of those. So
Okay.
just put yourself out there. Try new things. You never know what you're gonna like. I was always the jock, I guess, in high school and college. I liked sports, but I never wanted to tell myself that I was creative. But I could always draw, I could always paint, and going to college, I figured out that I could actually do that stuff, and I was good at it. So I got out of my comfort zone a little bit and found something I loved. So don't be afraid to try new things.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions before I open my pie hole again? Annie?
I'm curious with Bridget how starting a small business went and finding clients in central Minnesota and just kind of the track.
So she, Annie, the president of the marketing club, asked about starting a small business. You are right. Starting a small business in Minnesota, in central Minnesota, finding clients, how that process went.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I asked a lot of people a lot of questions. There wasn't a book I read or a guide or anything like that. At the agency I was at, I saw and learned how we got clients there. And so just trying to connect with businesses, with people who were doing the same thing I was doing, helped a lot getting clients, putting myself out there, whether it's LinkedIn or on a blog or things like that, trying to share my expertise and why I do what I do and not just how I do what I do. I'm not from central Minnesota originally. I'm from Southwest Minnesota, but college brought me to this area. And so using networks that I had, from back home, from here, the alumni network, clients who, graciously wrote referrals that, had someone they could connect me with. Again, it really went back to asking questions, putting myself out there.
Great. Anyone else? Then I'm going to ask one last question. We have not quite 10 minutes left. Everybody in this room eventually will be out probably applying for jobs and internships, right? What, to somebody who didn't really know what a CSB and SJU education was, what would you communicate to potential employers about the education here that makes it different from maybe a big state university or some of the other schools that competing students will come from?
I think Brace earlier had said it pretty well, and something that I always make sure I hit on when that does come up, whether it's in an interview or on an application or whatever, what have you, is you're not really siloed. I think so many other universities and colleges, and there's benefits to it as well, but you come out with such a clear and like direct path to like what your job's going to be, and like what skills you have and how you can apply them to a specific job, or you know, maybe even just a wider industry. But I think with CSBSJU, it's like you're equipped with such a wide array of skills and experiences, and it's really up to you to kind of determine your own path while you're at school, to really hit like a ton of different things, and being able to do a ton of different things that apply, you know, across a wide variety of industries and jobs. And I think, you know, in my case particularly, it's what has allowed me to kind of, you know, within the realm of project management and marketing and analytics and things like that, be able to kind of just shift more easily when I want to. Like I said, I started out with sports and marketing media within sports, and then I shifted over to kind of just like an agency setting and working with brands across, you know, retail and things like that. And then when I decided I, you know, wanted to shift over to more film and entertainment, it was a much easier shift because I was able to apply a ton of experiences that I had gotten while I was at school to, you know, all three of those things and more. And I'm not saying, you know, I'm not recommending necessarily constantly jumping around, but having the ability to do that in your back pocket is a really comforting thing. And you don't feel like you know, are stuck doing something that, you know, after a couple of years working, you find out, you know, I don't really like doing this as much as I thought I would. So I think being able to just kind of shift on the fly has been something I've been, you know, really, really blessed to have since, you know, I graduated and joined the workforce.
Great. Bridget or Brace, anything to add to that?
I think one thing I was able to speak to a lot is the ability to work in a variety of settings, whether it's independently, part of a group project, you know, as a major within my department, someone, you know, on an on-campus job, and just being able to speak to those experiences and what they taught me sort of within and outside the classroom. So just even taking time to reflect on, you know, like what those different experiences are teaching you along the way. I think that's one of the biggest things, you know, like not just I learned to write in this class, but this class had a lot of discussions. I had to think critically, and I had to consider how I was presenting my opinions and thoughts, anything like that.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, just going to class is kind of like just going in the real world every day. You got your own individual stuff to do. You got your group projects, you got discussion, kind of taking that and learning while being in class every day is kind of like what the real world's going to be like every day when in a work setting. Your classmates are your coworkers. How are you going to work along with them? If you got a group project, if you're going to work individually, a lot of stuff like that. So it's a learning experience every day. And, as long as you go in and with an open mind and stuff, it can go a long way.
And as they always say, the job that these people have when they graduate might not even exist yet. You know, so you come out with a broad set of skills, some good experience, and maybe something you really specialize in, but who knows where the winds are going to take you, and being ready for kind of pivots like that is not such a bad thing.
Instagram and Twitter came out while I was in college. And that's where a lot of my stuff gets showcased now. We were in your class when we all got a Twitter account.
Oh, remember, because somebody tweeted us from England during class. He was tweeting.
Yeah.
Yep, I remember that.
But yeah, like that, a lot of my job involves those apps now, and those didn't really exist until my junior year of college. So
Yep.
The world's going to change a lot, and especially in the marketing world, everything changes on a weekly, monthly basis. So
Yep. Good. Any last question? Let's give our panelists a hand, please. And guess what? I bet all three of them are on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Throw me a connection. I'm more than willing to kind of take any other questions you guys have.
or just see
I haven't
what
changed my
people-
headshot since 2009, but I'm on there.
That's before I even knew you.
Yep.
But you know, these people they connect with CSBSJU students and graduate. We do have a super solid network. And it's something to really take advantage of. Thanks all three of you for being here. Really appreciate your time and your insights, and it was great to see you.